Everybody doing good?
Doing
Good.
well, thank you so much. How
That's
about you?
great. That's great. I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Yes,
It's
Antarctic
like
Prime. There are humans on the screen. Believe it or not, we do talk to people. We do talk to people here. Anyways,
I have never identified as human. Just
you never identify as human. Well, I apologize. I apologize. I apologize. Anyways, oh, somebody just sub. Oh, somebody just subbed. Look at that. All right, that's cool. Anyways,
nice.
um, so either someone subbed or someone followed. I don't remember what sound I equipped. I assigned the Jetsons dinging to. I don't remember what I assigned that to, but it's fine. Oh, here's Gremlo. Okay, we'll go ahead. We were about to start without them, but we are going to go ahead and add them now. Okay, cool. Here we are. All right. So, anyways, welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to my first ever actual panel that I'm hosting called the Feminist Intersection. So this is going to be a panel that I hopefully host like weekly, and we're basically going to. We're also going to record it too. We're also going to record it, and it's going to go on YouTube. Um, and essentially, what this panel is all about is it's about just constructive, good conversation about basically, feminism, because oftentimes for people that would not consider themselves to be feminists, quote unquote. Feminism gets that like bad rap and everything of it's got feminine in the root name, so it must be only for women. So we're gonna hopefully change people's minds a little bit about that. We're gonna have people from all walks of life, from all people who can have intelligent and constructive conversations. That is, from all walks of life, and we're just gonna get on and we're gonna vibe and we're gonna talk some feminist shit, right? Men, women, everyone. Not children though. They can't come. Children cannot. I don't like kids. Anyways, so yeah, let's go ahead and get that started. So today, I don't exactly have like necessarily a prompt, just more of an idea. If you guys are cool with that, like my whole thing is I kind of want this to be kind of like good flowing, good vibes, nice shit. So today we're going to be talking about confidence. Basically, how does one exude confidence? Like, what does that look like to you? Like, how do you look at someone and go, oh, yeah, that dude over there, or that gal over there, or person, whoever, they are comfortable. They are clearly more than comfortable in their own skin. Like, look at how they tripped on that banana peel, and it wasn't even in Mario Kart, and then they got back up. Chad shit. Take it on the chin. You know what I'm talking about? So, like, I guess we're going to go around the room real quick, and we're going to each person's going to give like their whole opening statement, like introduce who you are. We all know the Twitch Paul bullshit, right? It's like give your opening statement, be like, yeah, this is me, show yourself, and explain to me and to the viewers and to my viewers, to your own viewers, what does it look like when an individual is like Chad confident. It doesn't even have to be Chad, it can be Stacy confident too, or whatever term you want to use. All right, we're going to go ahead and start with Corey Campbell.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to thank you so much for inviting me. I feel honored given the fact that this is like your first panel that you've organized. So super grateful to be here. But yeah, I'm Corey Campbell. You can find me on Twitch, Corey Campbell 84. I'm a PhD candidate in biochemistry. I cover some science, research, and politics. I do the occasional workout stream as well. And so in terms of confidence, and to ask, I've been thinking about this as best I could, and yeah, it's what because that's sort of like I think the tricky thing of like what is confidence in terms of like I think people know conceptually that there's a difference between sort of uh, confidence and sort of like surface level confidence. What I would more characterize as like fragile self esteem, as opposed to like true self esteem, where it's I think we're all sort of familiar of like someone who maybe on the surface exudes some sort of like confidence, self esteem, but then like as you start like peeling away the surface, there's like some pretty deep seated self esteem or confidence issues. And that's why I think it's really I don't know if there's really any telltale signs other than I just look for people that are like self-assured, um, and that they are they're not so quick, or they're not overly concerned with, let's say, external things in terms of like their appearance. They're mostly concerned with like what it is that they want, and they tend to like live with intention. Um, and I would also just sort of reframe it as I don't know that I would even label things as confidence. I think self worth, at least for me personally, is the more better term. But we'll get into it. And that's pretty much where I'm at now.
All right, thank you so much for that, Corey. Next, we're gonna go on to. Oh yes, I'll be sure to check Corey out. Next, we're gonna go ahead and go to the one, the only Dr. K.
Hi. I do not have much of a an online presence these days. I post on Twitter, but that's about it. Um, but I'm Dr. K. I am an LA-based activist. I am a longtime member of the Los Angeles IWW, that's Industrial Workers of the World. Um, if you're looking to unionize, that's a good group to reach out to. Um, Obviously, as pretty plain on day, I'm transgender. I am somewhere between trans woman and non-binary. It's a whole deal. We can get into it later. But as far as confidence, right? It, at the root of it is simply owning the shit that you do, right? And I don't mean that in a property sense, but I mean like when you say something, you're willing to stand by it within reason, and that you are essentially uh, it's putting yourself in the mental situation of I am on the right side of history and I am doing what needs to be done, right? And obviously, there's a lot of minutia in thereof, but in the broad strokes, I think that if you can extrapolate that kind of mindset, that's what I would say is like the number one show for a confident person.
All right, well, thank you for that, Dr. K. Next, we're gonna go over to Gremlo.
Hi, thank you for inviting me on. Hello, everyone. I don't think I've met anyone here at Corey. I think you and I might have been on a panel in the past, or I've seen you in chat. I'm not sure.
I've
But
definitely been in
I
your chat, that's for sure.
okay, cool. Okay, I thought I recognized your name. I'm a news, politics, and React streamer. I'm live every day, doing current events coverage and stuff. Sociology student. As far as the question of like what is confidence, I mean, this varies from person to person, but I kind of have always viewed confidence as the same way I view success, in that it's not having to stop and wonder if you have it, right? Much in the same way of like financial success, once you no longer have to check your bank account, you've got some financial success. Same thing with confidence, not having to stop and wonder if am I, comfortable in my skin right now? Do I feel comfortable in my presentation to other people? That's what confidence is. If I were to really think about it.
All right, thank you for that, Grimlow. Make sure you go check him and Dr. K out. Oh, and also, if I misgender anyone, just like smack me and say hey, and then just correct me. I apologize. And also, what you guys should have done is said your pronouns and shit up front, but whatever. Anyways,
See him.
so there we go. So next, we're gonna go to a good friend of mine from TikTok. We're gonna go to Sarah only, or it's Sarah only. I've known you by so many different screen names, but go ahead, Sarah.
Hi, I'm Sarah DeArmond. I run my own nonprofit, Voiceless Behind Bars, where we help the wrongfully convicted pay for their legal fees and hope to fight the stigma for those who have been to prison, who are in prison. And you can find me on TikTok and Instagram. It's Sarah Only. Don't know why I changed it from there. Sorry. But my pronouns are she, her. And confidence to me is how much you value yourself, how much you love yourself, and that sometimes you are going to let people walk all over you. It happens in life, but for the most part, you are going to have the wherewithal to say, you know something, I'm not going to let that person talk to me that way. And you don't have to get angry all up in their face, but just no, I'm ending the conversation here. And if you want to talk about it like adults, we can later, but I'm exiting this conversation. It's just having enough love for yourself to um, stand up for yourself and know when a situation is tricky to get out of it gracefully.
All right, thank you very much for that, Sarah. Be sure to check them out as well. They're mainly active on TikTok. Next, we're gonna go to another really good friend of mine, Beckett, the otaku aerialist. Go ahead.
Oh, one.
Can you, Beckett? Oh, you're muted. If you Okay, you're muted. Oh, Corey's back. There he is. Oh, wait. Oh. Okay, there we go. Yeah, Beckett, if you're trying to speak, we can't hear you. Well, while we're waiting, how's the weather where everybody's at today?
Terrible.
Terrible?
Thankfully, in my area, it's like much cool. It was like 30, 35 plus all weekend, and then today it's a nice like 20 degrees Celsius.
Oh, I was about to say, are we talking Celsius or
Oh yeah,
Fahrenheit?
I'm a filthy Canadian, so we work with
Oh,
real
one
numbers
of
and
these people.
scale.
Get the fuck out. Get off my shit. I'm kidding.
They use those
Just
commie
everything.
metrics.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Oh, there you are. Thank God.
Yeah.
Thank God. That was
Yay.
weird. Anyways, you weren't weird. I was being weird. Anyways, go ahead, Beckett. Tell us first. Tell us about the weather since you delayed us there. You're first gonna tell us about the weather where you're at right now, and then you're gonna go ahead and answer the prompt. So first with the weather forecast. Go ahead.
Sure. The weather here is hot, and that's pretty much all I got about it. I'm nice and cool inside, but out there it's very hot.
All right. And now that that prompt, I guess, that prompt we have about like what is confidence? Like what is it? You weren't here for that, were you? Yeah, so the prompt essentially is what is confidence? Like what does that look like to you? And also go ahead and give your introduction and everything. You know, like you've seen on the panels and been on stuff. Go ahead and give your intro and tell us like what does it mean to you? Like what does confidence like in the real world, like when we're out touching grass, you know? What does it look like when one is confident while touching the grass?
Sure thing. So, hey guys, I'm Beckett. I'm very new to streaming, so this is only like my third Twitch stream, I think. Still trying to figure out all the nuts and bolts. And I have mostly been on TikTok. That's kind of where my main presence is. And I think confidence is just being sure of who you are and what you have to offer, and um, just not really using all these tricks and tactics and things that we hear from the dating coachosphere all the time, because people can see right through that shit. Believe me, I've tried.
Right? Oh wait, were you done with your?
I'm done. Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's funny. Well, you know what? Let me go ahead and say what confidence means to me. So for the most part, like I didn't hear a single thing that would make me go, huh? Like why would they say that? But honestly, like I agree with basically with what everyone has been saying. And so for me, it's kind of like, you know, how do I say this? It's like being the man or the guy, the gal, or whoever, whatever you want to call yourself, whatever you identify as, like walking into a room, basically, right? And like, you know, just owning literally like who you are, right? Like that was a common sentiment among what basically everyone said was just being comfortable in your own skin. So I guess now we should go into, I guess, unless somebody like has something they want to add, whatever you would like, we can go into the open discussion if we want to. I guess we could go into, well, Dr. K, you were going to say something?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm not the type to, interrupt academia settings, all that. But I would say that here's the thing: is you can be completely comfortable per se in your skin, right? If the issue is that if that does not line up with material reality, right? So like, I'm a big buff man. I'm looking good. I got a big hammer, and I look real sexy every day of the week. But like, conditions around me are immiserating, right? Then it can be much harder to sort of produce confidence. And so, I'm the type to take the intersectional approach, and so I would just say like a lot of conditions, many of which do not originate from the internals, will often affect confidence, and it's more than just like emotional relationships because material and physical relationships affect that as well. But that's I don't know, me adding an asterisk to it unnecessarily. So I'm gonna go back on mute for a bit. The reason I stay on mute is I have a very clicky mouse, and so I don't want to make no stream noises.
No, that's cool. Whatever, you know. If you need to raise your hand, go ahead and do that. If you want to just insert yourself like a bullet train, go ahead and do that. You know, I just ask that people please be respectful of all, panelists and members, and just kind of maintain,
But
self-awareness, understanding. I've talked a lot, so, but
it
I'm gonna
depends on
talk.
the space, right? Like this space is chill, so like
Yeah,
raise your hand respectfully.
yeah,
If it's a
or
space
you
where
can
you're
insert
like
yourself. I don't really care.
incentivized to be a cutthroat, then that's when I'll start
Right.
brusking in, because I have kind of a reputation for buffaloing myself into conversations.
I mean,
Right.
it happens to the best of us. I do that shit all the freaking time. So I guess I guess we can go ahead and go into like a negative sort of thing here, right? What is something, because I know Beckett brought up the pickup artists, right? Like, those relationship dating coach advice, poser people, where it's like, okay, it's very clear this person either is strictly out here to sell something to me, or they don't actually know what it's like to have like an interaction with an actual, person, be it a person of, in many cases, it's not even necessarily a person of the opposite sex. It's one of the lines of like, wow, you really just, you don't know what a person is, do you? You don't know what a human being is, do you? Wow, okay. So what is a dead giveaway, I guess, for you guys? And I'm just gonna throw this out there and anyone can respond to it. What is a dead giveaway to you that someone is probably not confident, or that someone is probably, a poser, like they're faking it, or, they're probably not, their dick isn't as big as they're trying to make it out to be. Let me just say that. Let me be edgy and get my edgy little quip out there for a second. You know what I mean? What does that look, what's like some dead giveaways for that? Whoever.
Yeah, so I'll just say, for me, in my experience, at least one of the uh, quickest ways that I sort of maybe sort of come to the conclusion that someone has, some self-esteem or confidence issues, if they have a pretty like almost like right off the bat, they have a pattern of like tearing other people down, uh where it's like and I can probably give a specific example uh, that from my experience, as someone who's like an avid gym goer, there's when you start meeting people at the gym, most people are like supportive, but then every once in a while, there's that one person who will just whatever not be supportive and start talking trash about people behind their back, or start being overly critical of other gym goers, and really start tearing people down. For me, that's like a dead giveaway, or like I'm highly suspicious. Obviously, I don't like that behavior, but that to me sort of like screams of like, ooh, this person uh, doesn't really have like the greatest confidence or self-esteem. If they feel the need or the desire to start tearing other people
Yeah,
down
like
around them.
it's a little sussy wussy, right? Like, oh my god, this guy has to like tear into others in order to make himself feel like, in order to make himself, smile. Like, oh yeah, they're incredibly sus, like really sussy
Yeah,
behavior. Like you're probably this is probably like, some projection going on there. I guess what we is a good word for us to use, and like
that's fair.
we gotta watch out for like those people who are basically like projecting that they are that person, they are that bitch, or they are that dude, they are the man or whatever, but they're really not, and they have to resort to tearing down others in order to make themselves all of a sudden feel good. Which, I mean, I don't really. Where do you guys, unless somebody else wants to respond, has another response to that particular question? Um, does
I
anybody
do.
else have? Oh yeah, go ahead, Grimlow.
Sure. So if it's like within the online space and they're selling you on how to be confident, immediate red flag. Like confidence isn't something that can necessarily be taught. It's about a pattern of behaviors and like worldviews. So if they're selling you on like I'm going to teach you how to be confident, that's an immediate red flag. But in like interpersonal, if someone makes an appeals to like a mythologized idea of what is confidence or what is a man, you see it with like Andrew Tate, how to be a top G. Like that's immediately like a red flag. I was like, okay, you're like mythologizing what it is to like be a man as if that's like anything real at all, And yeah, if they're on the internet and they're selling you like NFTs or cryptocurrency or a Hustlers University top G get a Bugatti package.
Right? Like, yeah, yeah. So like that whole this is clearly like, a seller's facade, right? Like, oh, it's clear that this guy is just trying to sell me, you know, his book. It's clear that this guy is just trying to sell me his like pamphlet or his or her pamphlet or like their course on like, you know, what does it mean to be masculine? What does it mean to be, you know, confident? What does it mean to be feminine? Whatever the hell that they're trying to grift for you in that day or in that given moment.
Yeah, and like you can go to someone like Jordan Peterson too, who's like telling you how to like be a man, or like again, like Jordan Peterson does this too, like the mythology of
Right.
like the great man, like we have to go back to like what men were, like that kind of stuff.
Birth control has made men sissies.
That's right.
It's the birth control and the femoids being able to speak in public. That is what's
Yeah,
making men lose confidence. You
yeah,
have to put a muzzle on her, fellas.
that's right. Victims of divorce court.
Yeah, victims of
Yeah.
divorce court rise, alpha hands, like
Which
Yeah.
yeah.
which is really weird because like one of the major drivers of that stuff is stuff that they essentially refuse to address or address in the most lopsided way imaginable. Those tending to be deprivation of material conditions or social atomization. The suburbification is essentially hell for the mental scape of the human.
Yeah,
Right.
or they'll tell you all of the descriptive statements, like men and women have difficulty working together in the workplace. There's issues with sexual harassment, or like very weird elements of like what is like gender presentation, and they'll preload all of your biases that you've already accumulated over time. And then when it comes time to give the prescriptive statement, Jordan Peterson again does this, then they just say nothing. "Well, I don't know what the solution is. Maybe we don't ever find out." And then all of the biases that the audience has accumulated answer that question internally,
Right.
and they're
Yeah.
never good.
Yeah, it's kind of like a baiting, you know, that they do. Like they kind of bait you into believing
Hmm.
into like reinforcing your already like toxic ideas that you don't really understand are toxic because they were not corrected. And then it's like, oh well, he didn't talk about this, so I must be right in the way that I view, you know, both the interactions between women, men, and people in between, right?
Yeah.
So, I actually want to hear from Sarah and Beckett if they do have anything on that. Like, no pressure if you don't. Like, I mean, if you want to just say, yeah, what this person said over here or this person said over here, that's fine too. But I also, you know, since you guys aren't, out of everyone on here, you guys haven't been on as many panels. So, want to give you guys a chance to get in there. Like I said, just toss a grenade or a blue shell whenever you want to be in. Don't wait for it to be called on. We just this is good vibes. Just steamroll. Let's go.
Well, I've had some unfortunate run-ins with some MRAs, and that's oh gosh, that's a huge red flag. It's
What
like
running with an MRA isn't unfortunate.
uh, he was an online predator who manipulated me, and he had me thinking that he was going through something when really he was taking advantage of me when I was going through a vulnerable time. So
All right.
that was my unfortunate run-in with him. So
All
What
right.
were some of the indicators, if you don't mind me asking, that he was like a MRA?
Yeah.
he straight up told me he was an MRA.
Oh, okay.
They'll do that. They'll do that. Sarah and Beckett are familiar with my TikTok live streams, and like people will get on there, and I y'all think Twitch Paul is some shit, buddy. Listen, there have been some characters. Okay, we have stories. All right, they will just flat out come on and say, yeah, I'm an MRA, or like I'm a men's rights activist. And it's like, well, what do you mean men's rights activism? Well, feminism doesn't. We've heard this one, right? We've heard this one, right? Feminism doesn't do anything to solve the problems that men face in today's society. That is something echoed by quite a few people. And it's like,
Yes.
well, that's why we talk about, you know, intersectionality and the way in which we all, regardless of gender, the way in which all of these, you know, conflicts and all of these obstacles, I guess, that we face in society, the way in which they all sort of like blend together. But Beckett, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I had a really interesting interaction with an egalitarian guy
Ugh.
early on in my TikTok career. Um, and we could not agree on a place from which to move forward. Like his entire argument was just, no, we're all equal. It's all, that's what egalitarianism is all about. And that's why you have to embrace it. And I was like, okay, but to solve the problems that we have currently, we have to recognize first that there is a problem. And we have to hyper focus on the areas of society that are enforcing those problematic tropes and encouraging people to, lean into toxic behaviors and stuff. And, unfortunately, that has a lot to do with toxic masculinity. Which negatively affects both men and women. And ultimately he ended up like accusing me of not acknowledging his sexual assault, and then just calling me a misandrist in the end. And I was like, no, because we can have the same idea about working towards equality. The problem is you can't just shut out the problems and declare it all equal. That's not how it works.
Yeah, if you say it enough times, it'll happen. As opposed.
Sounds like that person was
Right.
conflating egalitarianism with meritocracy.
Okay, I could see that.
Yeah, it didn't. The conversation was more around like the way that we deal with inequality in the courts and sexual assault
That's
cases and things like that.
that right there. That's a big one. That's a real big. I didn't mean to cut you off, but
Yeah,
that's a big one.
and the only reason that he brought it up was because I was talking about the struggles that women face on that end, and that's the only time any of these dudes, tend to chime in.
Yes.
And then it got to the point where he was like, oh, but men face sexual assault too. And I'm like, I agree and I acknowledge that. But unfortunately, the statistics don't bear out, the statistics are that men more often face that kind of assault from other men, and women face it a lot more often.
And like, not only that though, right? But we get into this habit, like, because I do think that there are men out there that legitimately have gripes and unanswered. A lot of these gripes go unanswered. A lot of these this tension and this what's the word I'm looking for?
Ennui.
Yeah, for lack of a better word. Yeah, this stuff goes unanswered. But then I feel like men oftentimes they will and I'm not trying to make this let's just bash men and say what men are doing wrong panel. Absolutely not. But I can't help but feel as though men for the most part will only ever you only have ever hear this shit brought up, the shit that men face. You only ever hear it be brought up whenever we start talking about women's issues, or when a woman wants to chime in on like the things that she has faced, or like even a trans person, people in between, trans men, trans women, what have you. This isn't to say that they aren't women or men or whoever they identify as, whatever, just what you want to do. But even whenever a non-cis male group, non-cis man group is bringing up problems that they face in today's society, we then have like the most bro dude like pop up and it's like, but what about us and the things that we face? Even though men, oftentimes, we get the microphone, or they, because I'm non-binary, leaning more towards mass, but whatever. Those of us who are more masculine presenting, we get the microphone a lot. We get the spotlight. You know what I'm saying? We'll go ahead and go to, I think I saw Dr. K first, and then we'll head to Corey.
Yeah, and here's the thing, right? Is I think it's completely valid to talk about men's issues. There are plenty of men's issues. Oftentimes, they trace from patriarchal origins, right? But I'm usually of the mind where it's like, one, if you're ever going to discuss the problem, you need to discuss the problem source first and foremost, right? And oftentimes when it comes to the issues men's rights activists talk about, it's usually misogynistic in its origin as well, right?
Right. And then when we, oh, go ahead.
And moreover, right, is like it's completely fine to talk about those issues, highlight them even. It's the issue underlying sort of is this inability to show empathy or solidarity with other groups that are trying to self-actualize their own ends as well as your own, right? And it's like, I have issues, therefore you cannot talk about yours, versus I have issues, and so let's see, how we can fix both of them, right? And so, I know plenty of people who talk about men's issues, but like, if you're going to talk about them, you don't utilize your own issues as a cudgel to silence others. That's like, reactionary shit 101.
Right, right. And I feel like that's like, if I can interject, I feel like that's something that goes on a lot, is that, because like, I've had it where I have talked to a lot of my femme friends before about it, where like they're opening up to me about like, maybe it's something like an assault or a time in which they felt uncomfortable in a situation or in a group setting. And then whenever I bring it up, they can empathize with me because the way in which I bring it up is not just it's not a silencing sort of way in which I'm bringing it up. It's one along the lines of I'm bringing it up in a way in which like, oh yeah, I feel for you. This sort of thing happened to me here, there, and there, what have you, and that put me in a similar situation. So like, I can't believe that they did that to you. Like, I completely understand where you're coming from, and then we just keep bouncing back and forth, and we're both coming to a consensus, and being a shoulder for each other to cry on, because it's good to cry. Corey, you had something, and then we'll go to other people as well.
Yeah, sort of to your point, where so Endless Cemetery, fellow streamer, I don't know if you're familiar, but they
I am
were on a
familiar.
panel yesterday, Kevin FM's panel, and he brought up the point, or one of the other panelists brought up the point, where it's like, if a black person starts talking about how black people uh, might be living in poverty, or are living in a lower socioeconomic uh, class, like the response often comes as like, well, what about white people? White people are poor too. Where it's always like, it seems like, uh, if the conversation isn't revolving around their own group, then they don't want that conversation to happen. As in, if you're talking about poverty, you talk about black poverty. Well, white people don't want to have that conversation because it's not you're not including white people. I think it's sort of a similar thing, where if feminism, or women are talking about women's issue, like very many men don't want to have that conversation happen because it's not including them, or it seems like it's not including them when it is.
Right.
Um, and like, it seems to come from this viewpoint of, I don't know, either like rights or equality is like this zero sum game. And that, like, if we want to talk about any issue, like it can't be focused on a certain group that is at a point in time, like currently more disadvantaged or more disenfranchised. And it's just like really bizarre.
Right, and that's like where we get to things like the oppression Olympics, right? Like, oh well, what about me? I'm struggling. Like, how can you tell me? Like, we can go so far into that, Corey, on like a whole nother like panel. Maybe on another time we have like we talk about that kind of like systemic inequalities or what have you. But I think like what Dr. K said, about the source of things, right? So we go to the source of of where a lot of these feelings come from, and like we've said before, it's toxic masculinity, or and we say, when we use words like toxic masculinity, we use words like patriarchy, in many cases that kind of shuts a lot of people off from from what we're trying to say to them, the idea that we're trying to convey, right? So in many cases, the reason why we can't seem to move forward in these discussions is because people fail, or just neglect, to acknowledge the problem or the source of the problem, right? Oh, also Dr. K said that they'll be right back. But they fail to acknowledge the source of the problem, and that is that is, if anything, that is like the sole reason why we cannot move forward. And why do you guys think that is? Like, why do you think? I have my own ideas as to why, but I'm trying not to talk so much. Why do you guys think that is, that people fail to, or don't want to acknowledge that it's toxic masculinity, that it's patriarchal norms and stuff like that? We'll go to let's go to Gremlo. We haven't heard from Gremlo in a while.
Sorry about that. Um, why people fail to recognize or go on the defensive whenever issues of people who don't fall within their like race, gender, ethnicity. is what
Well,
we're asking.
essentially, like, why is it that people, the source of the problem seems to bother, acknowledging the source of the problem seems to bother people. Like, why is that?
Oh, yeah. So it's it's the same thing with like capitalism, right? It's easier to imagine the end of the world than the end of capitalism. It's the same with patriarchy. As a beneficiary of it, being a white dude, it's easier to imagine the end of the world than the end of that kind of social structure. So immediately they go on the defensive. It has to be something else. It can't be that they participate in that or that they're a beneficiary of it. They don't think of themselves as a an arbiter of something that could harm people. People genuinely think that they do good and like they try to be good people. Most of the time, that's true, but a lot of the time, it's not. Um, yeah, it's a difficult thing to come to terms with because it's kind of like imagining yourself as doing good all the time, and then someone saying like, "No, you're actually bad." Or what you do is bad. They go on the defensive because, well, everything that they've been brought up to believe has been never painted as bad. It must be the feminists. It must be the gays. It must be,
Right,
BLM.
like you brought
That's the
it up,
problem.
so it must be you
Yeah.
who's the problem. That I never
Yeah.
thought of it that way. I actually never did think of it in
Well,
that light.
it's the perceived loss of privilege, right? That
Yeah.
if you, as whether you're a person of color or you're part of the queer community, get more rights or equal rights, it must mean that I am losing something because everything within our social structures is transactional. So if you get something, then it must be I'm losing something. It's the same with like BLM or any subject. Well, if you get equal rights, passively they're recognizing that that social structure, that hierarchy exists because they don't want to be on equal footing with someone who is below them on that structure. They recognize they're not in it and they don't want to be in that lower rung. So it's the same thing. It's the perceived loss of privileges and the screeing whenever they think that they're going to lose it.
Right. Like, like the whole idea that like equal rights for some, what equal rights does not mean less for you. It's not pie, right? Like,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
I believe Sarah was going to chime in.
Yes. Oh, I believe when, in particular, men have to admit that they are the patriarchy and they benefit from it and they have taken part in toxic masculinity, they have to admit to themselves, okay, well, why do I benefit from it? Why have I taken part in toxic masculinity? And they have to start stripping away the layers and they have to look at, okay, well, this is why I benefit from it. This is why I've taken part in toxic masculinity in particular. And they see there's a lot of pain there. There's a lot they've had to mask up. And they don't want to get in touch with their feelings. Oh no, that's too feminine. No, I don't want to do that. And when they start to do that, then that's when the pain that they've masked, all of that, because a lot of people, like Andrew Tate in particular, has admitted his childhood was full of trauma. But when you get them to strip that back and start talking about that,
Nobody
they
wants to
don't
do
want
it.
to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nobody wants to do it. It's so hard. It seems like to talk about trauma, or at least, like, I don't think it's hard, but like everybody's different, right? Like everybody deals with trauma differently, and then I think a large part of it, like again, I love this conversation because it seems like we keep going back to the same sort. We eventually get back. We eventually circle back to the source. The source is again toxic masculinity. Not necessarily masculinity in and of itself is toxic, but rather there are elements that, when taken too far, become toxic. I do have something. Remind me if I forget, and chat too. Remind me if I forget. That I want to go into. I've already forgotten. No, I wanted to go into competition because that is a big form. That is a big form of a big part of toxic masculinity. Not to say that femininity doesn't have competition within and of itself. It does, but we do see competition as more of a male or a masculine sort of having a masculine sort of origin. Basically, we see we see dudes. We look at two dudes coming together, and we just see the rams on the side of a mountain. Just bashing into each other's heads, right? But just before we go on to that, I want to go ahead and get Corey and Beckett your thoughts on what we were just talking about like toxic masculinity, why people don't want to acknowledge the problem and why it's so hard for them to acknowledge the problem. Great point so far from everyone, by the way.
Yeah. I'm not sure I have a a concrete answer for you other than like I th- I think there appears to be some sort of this resistance towards maybe like introspection and that like you might have kind of like contributed towards that system or that issue. I think that's why you see a lot of the pushback coming from it, as in like if you are a man and you recognize that patriarchy and toxic masculinity is part of the problem, well, that sort of implicates you as potentially contributing to that problem, or almost certainly contributing to that problem. But it's not a bad thing to recognize, like, because like why wouldn't you want to be better, or why would you not want to be more aware of how you could be better, and hopefully push towards the type of equality that you seem to want to profess. And to sort of maybe bring it back to what Otaku Aerolist brought up earlier of the example of like when they were talking about women and sexual assault, and then they got the response of like, well, men face sexual assault too, but then there's that element of like, well, so what are the things that like prevent men from speaking about sexual assault? It's toxic masculinity or the inability to share your feelings, your experiences, your trauma, and sort of generally speaking, men not being able to create a safe space for that, to talk about those things, where to talk about these things, to have empathy, compassion, understanding. Those are more the quote unquote like feminine qualities, and to move in that direction, that's inherently bad for some people, and I don't really know why, because those are good things.
Right. Beckett, did you have anything to add, or did we already went to you, didn't we? Did we? Or I mean, if anybody has anything to
No,
add,
but
they can.
I'm a little distracted. I'm having some audio issues.
I think we all having issues. I'm having frame issues, like not bad frame issues, but it's whatever. I'm just glad. I'm more along the lines of just glad that you guys are here. And you guys are You guys are sharing this time and this space with me. I really did like what Corey said about the safe space thing, because when we oftentimes, right, when we hear about safe space, because we grew up, a lot of us who are here, who were people who were around at when the internet was first, like, oh my god, it's this new thing called the internet, like that's like infinite and exists, and like you use a computer to get on it, and like there's viruses and like porn. Like when the internet first started, right, internet trolling was like a new way of, like cyberbullying was a new way in which you could like bully somebody, right? Because who doesn't want to bully somebody, right? I mean, bullying is great. I'm kidding. But I feel like we
Based.
never we never addressed we never fully and constructively addressed like bullying growing up. And so when we heard the term safe space, everybody just, and with the whole anti-SJW shit from Gamergate and what have you, everybody just sort of like knee-jerk reacted to it and was like, oh, well, if you need a safe space, well, you're a pussy. And so I guess we could use the whole topic of safe space to go into, okay, so what is patriarchy? And in what way does patriarchy negatively impact not only women, because we talk about that a lot, right? Not only women, but cis men as well. Like, how does patriarchy, what is patriarchy for one? We have to establish what that is. And I'm going to let you guys go ahead and just, make that establishment or what you guys think it is or what have you. And then we're going to go into in what way does this concept, this idea, how does that negatively impact, how does that negatively affect men in their day-to-day lives? We'll go ahead and start with, I should have pulled out a die. We'll go ahead and start with Sarah. Slingshot it over there.
All right. So, what? Can you repeat the question if you don't mind?
What is patriarchy, and in what way does patriarchy negatively affect men in our day-to-day lives? And then we'll go on from there.
Great. So, patriarchy is not just men being in control, but you have to meet these certain standards. Like, you are in control of your household. You have a cisgender relationship, and you are the breadwinner, and you don't show your emotions, and you are also in control of your job, and this absolutely hurts men uh, just in so many ways because they can't express themselves. They can't maybe go into a career field that they want. They can't. They have to suppress their own emotions, and it's detrimental to them. Absolutely.
Right. So from there we will go to let's hear from Beckett, and then we'll get Dr. K whenever they come
Uh,
back.
Oh, I'm here, dude. I'm
Sure.
just
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you had like left or not. But we'll go to Beckett, then we'll go to Dr. K, then we'll go to Graham, then we'll go to Corey.
Sorry. Again, I'm distracted trying to troubleshoot audio, but can you repeat the question one more time?
All right. What is patriarchy, and in what way does patriarchy negatively affect men in the day to day?
Oh my, like in lots of ways. I actually have conversations with my friends about this all the time about how I think today's, especially young men, like Gen Z and millennial men, more than others, it seems, are having a hard time figuring out their place in society because they come from a generation of being raised as like, you have to be the breadwinner, you have to be macho man, you have to be the leader of the family, you have to take charge, you have to take what you want, you have to, take control of all the situations. And then they exist in this weird kind of middle space of that was what they were taught, but the world that we live in now is different. So they don't really know where they fit in and they have a hard time kind of keeping up. So, like, how do I act around women? Like, what is the right attitude to have when dating? And, like, what if she earns more than me? What does that make me? Like, how does that affect my masculinity and my value as a man in society? And yeah, so I think it affects them on a existential level. But patriarchy itself is just the uh, form of societal governance that men are in charge.
So like, I never got the idea of like, what if she makes more than me? And like, get pimped. I don't know.
Well,
Like,
and that's what I'm saying.
what?
Yeah,
Like,
like a lot of guys, a lot of guys, I feel like struggle with things like that. And it's not just about the money thing, but there are other factors in there too. Like, what if she's more assertive than me? What if she's more ambitious than me? Like, um, I think that's where a lot of these toxic manosphere ideas are coming of like your woman has to be subservient and she has to be demure and you have to take charge of the relationship and things like that that are based in archaic ideas of what it is to be a man or a woman in society.
can't relate. Anyways, we're gonna go. No, but I like that point though. We're gonna go next to Dr. K. My bad. I thought you were gone, but if you're here, go ahead.
no, no, partner. I'm always here. If I deafen myself, that's when I'm like stepped away, and I'll usually like say in chat like I'm stepping away.
Cool.
As far as like what patriarchy is, right, is in the critical theory of social sciences, right? There's this idea of the core, the semi-periphery, and the periphery, right? So as you get closer to the core, you basically get more and more concentration of power, right? And usually we use that in the term of like defining states. Like the United States is a core state, right? And then you'll have periphery states, and then you'll have the most exploited states on the periphery, and then you'll have semi-periphery states. And so I sort of take a view of it where it's not just formalized states can exist in this system, but rather you have modes of cultural interrelation. And if I'm jerking off like academia shit too much, let me know. But like,
keep going. As long as you can explain it, like for those of us who are dumber, keep going. Whatever.
well, that's a weird way of putting it, but I get what you mean, man. And so essentially, like, I believe that you can have cultural and societal interrelations that sort of exist on that hierarchy, right? And so patriarchy would simply be the term to define, what gender relation sits at the core of our, hypothetical core periphery, all that, right? And so, other modes of expressing gender relations would be ones that are, further out on this, hypothetical circle till you get to the very edge of it, right? And so, feminism is a new way, a new, sort of means by which, you can do gender interrelations, and it's a theory, and it's, not the mainstream one, but it's one that is sort of fighting for cultural dominance. And I believe, I think anyone who sort of looks at it long enough can see that it's, the better way of relating to genders, as it's sort of a healthier way of going about it.
Right. So then from there, we are going to go to, who did I say was up to? Are you done though? Are you done yet?
I think
I'll,
me.
I'll
but-
add because everything, that we're talking about, right, isn't material. It's a social construct at the end of the day, right?
Right.
There's technically infinite ways to do gender relations, right? It's simply that, patriarchy and feminism, in the many different forms it takes, are the main sort of ways that we put forward of exploring new ways to interrelate with one another.
Right. And that's why we're here. On the feminist intersection, we've all met at this this weird intersection, of where all of these things kind of intersect and what have you. I believe next was it Corey or was it Graham? I don't know. Fight over it.
I
Corey,
have no
you can
problem.
go if you want.
It's going to be a seeding ground war.
This is the
but sure.
Thunderdome, so two go in, one comes out.
Yeah, I'll just try to be brief. In terms of I'm not in the same sort of academic spheres as Dr. K. But I just view patriarchy as a system of power that's controlled by men, used to dominate basically everyone else. But to answer more your specific question about who that affects, uh, or rather how that affects men specifically as well, also men specifically. I think there's clear data, especially when it comes to things like deaths of despair. As in, if you look at the demographics of basically the people who are unfortunately taking their lives at a much higher rate, a significantly higher rate, a large portion is coming from cis white men, and I think that largely stems from capitalism that bleeds into patriarchy, where it's like they don't seem to recognize like their own situation and how the system itself, both the capitalistic system and the patriarchal system, is sort of really pressuring them to the max, and they understandably can't handle that pressure, and they end up taking their lives much more frequently. But they don't even see, again, they still don't even under those circumstances want to see or address the problem. And I'll stop right there and let Gremlo chime in.
All right. Thank you for that.
Sure. So, question was, what is patriarchy and how does it affect men? Cishet men specifically. Oh boy, I mean, this is the question that the social sciences has asked for a long, long time. Um, as I understand it, patriarchy is a it's kind of like roadkill. You know, you don't really always have to see it, but when you smell it, you know it's there, right? Um, a series, a spectrum, if you will, of social and cultural interactions, expectations, and norms, right? Men, in a pursuit of embodying what masculinity is, take on the worst elements of it. Aggression, stoicism is a good one. Um, and how that affects men directly is, as someone mentioned before, higher rates of suicidality, men are overrepresented in the incarceral system and within the military and within the most dangerous jobs that we have like the highest death and injury rates. Why those things exist? Well, it's because much like white supremacy, patriarchy also harms men, as white supremacy also harms white people, mostly poor white people.
Right, because they don't get to see, how they're being screwed over by this weird, like, illusory, there we go, illusory concept of like race and like supremacy of one race over like every single other one, right? And they don't understand ways in which they're being screwed over, all for the sake of, you just have white skin, like, so you are just innately better than everyone else. You're a man, so you are just innately better than, or if we want to get specific, you are a white man, so you are innately better than everyone else around you, you know um
Right.
so, oh, sorry, were you gonna say something?
I was just gonna add on, like that the intersection of their oppression is along class lines. Everyone is going to be, getting on the train if they're not an owner, right?
Right, yeah. So I guess from there, what Gremla was just saying, kind of, it kind of got me thinking about, like, about, when I think Corey was one who brought up capitalism too. um Competition, right? And what I was saying earlier about how we have, in many cases, what we consider to be masculinity is merely just a toxic form of competition between, two, or maybe even a group of guys trying to out bro or out guy the other guys. Like, oh, I bet you I can get like more numbers than you tonight. Oh yeah, well, I bet I can sleep with your mom, and then like conflict ensues and the plot thickens, right? Oh, go ahead, Corey.
Oh no, if you want to finish your
No, go ahead. I've
yeah.
finished a lot.
And to sort of maybe tied in to what we were just talking about, and like yeah, I would say that this really toxic aspect of competition, and how like even that aspect, like where it's like yeah, men are more likely to profess or like be more in favor of competition, but they don't see how it hurts them, or it's like really to their disadvantage, or they don't even see how they're unable to compete. Uh, where I think, at least for me, I think one of the starkest examples is higher education, where men are all about competition, but they literally can't appear to compete in higher education like anymore. Like they are an endangered species in academia, and instead of maybe like asking questions like why that is, being more introspective. At least the talking point that gets thrown at me when I bring this up is like, well, this is just like the feminization of academia, where it's like, oh,
I've
now
heard that
now
one a
that
lot.
now that women are just way more overrepresented in academia, now it's too feminized that men they can't compete in that atmosphere. When if I like reframe it, like medical school, at least if I remember the numbers correctly, like in North America, it's majority women. um, well, and it's I'm pretty sure it's only going to the discrepancy is only going to grow and grow for quite a while. And it's so interesting where like I get the pushback is like this is the feminization of academia, but like uh there was never before actually women were allowed to like pursue higher education or go to medical school. Like we didn't start accommodating them. Basically, what I'm trying to say is like women went into men or masculine spaces and they took over. They didn't have that excuse of like the feminization of academia. Like they literally went into masculine spaces. But then if we tell that to men, it seems like they can't do that. They can't go into the feminized spaces. They can't compete in those spaces. But women like went out and did it. That's just like so strange to me. Like generally speaking, like academia didn't start accommodating women, and then women moved into those spaces. It's like women like trailblazed the path, and now pretty much the talking point is like, well, actually, men can't trailblaze the path either. It's just like it's too feminized, and we just can't go in. We can't compete. When maybe you might want to take a page out of their playbook and maybe introspect as to why you can't go into that space.
So, like, I guess I do want to ask a question for you, Corey, and this is a question anybody can piggyback on this and like give their answer to it. Why is it that it seems as though women are more involved in academia, or are how do I say, it seems to be more women present in academics, graduating from higher education, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but because
No,
like
you're absolutely correct.
a good example, I don't have a degree, but the degree that's hanging out on the wall, hanging out in the hall, is not mine. It's my partner. She has a degree. I don't. Right? Like just speaking from personal experience, I actually dropped out of college because of monetary reasons. Right? So why do we feel? Why do we think? What do you guys think is the reason as to why it seems as though women are are seen more in academic fields, or have more success in academic fields? Anybody?
Well, I mean, I can. I don't want to take up too much space because I have potentially a lot to say. I can even
Go
have a
off.
whole separate panel on this, but I'll let others
Go
go
off,
first.
King.
dude, if you have insider knowledge about this subject and like are well educated on it, fucking tell us. You don't
Yeah,
have to.
go
Well,
You don't
ahead.
have to be afraid.
Well, no, I don't want to say. I don't want to get it across like I have my strong hypothesis. I just think to sort of like distill it down. I think just generally speaking, in terms of like the way women tend to be socialized, I think they're just like more emotionally intelligent. As um, in order to be sort of like, at least from what I understand, and I tried to research it heavily, in order to sort of like cultivate, some resilience and some grit, it seems to be a key component of that appears to be sort of like identifying and recognizing your emotions. And that sort of the concept of alexithymia, specifically the concept of like normative male alexithymia, where it's like nothing pathological, but just generally, I think on the whole, on average, like men are just not good at either vocalizing or identifying their emotions all that well, even talking about them. And I think there's a heavy cost to that over time. Where if you want to cultivate resilience, uh, being in touch with your emotions appears to be really important to cultivate resilience. And therefore, like um, I would say, just overall emotional intelligence is what is like holding men back.
I don't know. I would break a little bit with your definition here, right? Is one uh, assuming you're correct on that lack of emotional intelligence, I would ask where does that stem from? Because it are you positing that it's a natural phenomenon or
No,
that
no,
it's culturally
I'm
normative?
no, at least I'm not making any sort of biological claim. I think, and I say this as a biologist, like I think it's largely, if not exclusively, socialized in terms of like, I think just men on average, from childhood are just sort of taught to like just suppress any emotions, particularly any of the negative ones, just like bottle it up. And if you are not aware of your emotions, it seems to be like really difficult to like navigate the world, or at least navigate the world and navigate a complex world. And I think our world is becoming.
Oh, what happened? I feel like it's on my end.
Is our host
There we
frozen?
go. There we go.
I think temporarily.
Sorry. All right, am I back now? Am I good?
You
All
good
I believe
now,
so, yeah.
mate?
All right, cool.
But
Continue.
a lot of academic stuff is generally emphasized uh, not as a instant gain, right?
Gratification, delayed gratification.
I would argue that when you are socialized masculine, generally there is a huge emphasis put on like the fact that you, at least in the United States, the moment you turn 18, you need to have a source of income, right? And that can often come at the detriment of one's ability to sort of pursue an academic career. Um, Whereas I feel like if you're socialized under a feminine lens, there is less of an emphasis put on immediately being able to be self sufficient. Um, and this, I have no scientific backing for that claim. The only thing quantifying that is that I've been socialized as both, and that is essentially observations I've seen.
Well, I think that goes back to kind of what I had been saying before about men being socialized to be the provider and, to support a family. And so I think that makes a lot of them feel they have to go. And I've experienced this within my own brother. Like we've talked about this quite extensively about he feels inadequate for where he's at in his life because he doesn't have those things.
Mhm.
Well, I can say that a lot more women are these days more headstrong in their careers and they want to learn more. And like with me in particular, it took me just a few years ago to find out what I wanted to do with my own career. And I'm like, okay, well, I want to go back to school. I want to learn some more. I think there's more. We're seeing more of a drive with women in the career field, and now we're seeing more of a drive in the academic field as a result.
Right.
Certainly.
Right. Give me one hot second. I'm just having a few like internet troubles. Don't really know what's going on right now, but OBS keeps like disconnecting and then reconnecting. No idea. But chat's still
Yo,
going.
story of my life.
So like I don't know. I don't know what's going on right now, but we're gonna you know what? It's being recorded. So excuse for people to go to the YouTube channel. All right. So anyways,
Can I jump in on
yeah, go ahead.
the question?
Go right ahead.
Yeah.
Go right ahead, Graham.
So
Go right ahead.
women overrepresented in like education. First and foremost, my wife is an educator, so I can tell you that
Same.
it certainly is the case, at least in our area, that women are definitely overrepresented in education.
Yo, same. My
But
partner's also an educator.
there you go. There you go. Higher ed or
She made
primary?
special primary like you know what? I don't remember. Oh well, my door's
Okay,
closed right
great.
now. But I know I think actually it might be like I think she's gotten a degree. Her degree goes as far as like high school, I believe. I think it's as far as it goes. But continue. Sorry.
Okay. Well, part of it is it goes back to like the cultural norms and expectations that yes, women are expected to be caretakers, and one of the primary caretaking positions within our society is that of education. But it also goes back to Protestant work ethic that men are expected to be breadwinners, are expected to do the most back-breaking, body-destroying type of labor, and women are either supposed to be barefoot and pregnant at the home or educating the youngins. Additionally, historically, it goes back to war. That World War II, men were abroad fighting the war, and women were taking over jobs that normally they were not taking over. And one of them was education in higher ed, that women took that over. That goes back to a lot of very conspiratorial thinking in on the right in reactionary spaces that feminizing of men takes place in education. That education is Marxist. Education is teaching kids communism or feminizing them. It's all goes back to the reactionary patriarchal understanding of like what education and pedagogy is.
Right. And it's really funny because I was listening to a panel earlier when while I was at work, while I was driving around doing my job, making my rounds and everything. About and one of the things that was brought up by a particular panelist on this panel was exactly what Gremlo just said about how education is feminizing men and how we have which makes no sense to me. I mean, I guess we can go ahead and dive into that as well if you guys would like to, and I guess assess why is it that people feel why where do you guys think this idea that education is feminizing men and like emasculating men, where on Earth or maybe Mars does this come from? Let's go ahead and go to Beckett. I don't know where Corey went, but
They
there
said
they
they'd be
are.
back in a minute.
There they are. They're in Glasspool, so I'll go ahead and pull them back. But go ahead, Beckett. You go ahead and kick this off.
Yeah, so I think the root of all of the things that we're discussing goes back to misogyny. And I think that just the fact that, like you were saying, like the education fields are overrepresented by women, and it has over the years, it didn't always used to be, but over the years has become a primarily female dominated workspace. And we stigmatize quote unquote mama's boys, as a society, young boys who are too doting or loving of their mothers, especially as they get older, because that becomes, I don't know, cringe.
Oh no, I was a total mama's boy growing
And
up, and I told people, I was like, yeah. Like, what you gonna do?
and here's a tip for
Pay
all
my
of you
bills.
chuds out there looking for girlfriends. We love a guy who loves his mother. Okay,
Yeah.
so fuck down.
Or at least my partner can clearly tell that I love her more than my dad. But continue.
But yeah, I think it all comes down to the, oh my gosh, I was listening to, I forget if it was a podcast recently about how things that used to be masculine but get adopted by a female dominated space or whatever, like names. Lori
Yeah.
used to be a man's name.
Yeah.
Shannon used to be a man's name.
Ashley.
And then you see this trend of once Ashley, this trend of once that name or field or whatever it happens to be becomes getting popularized and adopted by women, and more women are popping up there or with that name, it goes out of style for boys, because no parents want to associate their boy, and no boy wants to go to a field that is overly dominated by women, because that's seen as, I don't know, weak or than, if they're overly associated with women or have a woman's name. And I think that just it all comes down to misogyny. Women are less than, so yeah.
Anyone else?
Yeah, just do it.
See, you can't
I wanna-
just pop out and then just come back in and
No,
be like,
sorry.
all right, my turn. No, go ahead. I'm kidding.
No, I apologize.
Nah, go ahead. It's cool. It's cool.
And I apologize for missing. I think I'm just missed your point, Dr. K. But what I'll say, to sort of maybe illustrate the example, that you just brought up, Otaku Airlist, of like, women, not that they had no problem, but they went into medicine and became doctors, and took over that aspect. But when it comes to nursing, like, just men are not willing to go down, or at least much less
Mhm.
willing to go into that space. And I think largely, as you said, due to misogyny, and the perceived, weakness, to, go into that field.
Don't all talk at once.
Okay. Well, okay. Let me jump in then, since we had some dead air. Okay. So the original question was, why are women overrepresented in education?
Yeah. Why do you think that is? Why do you think it seems like that?
What is education
Oh,
be-
feminizing.
being
Okay.
Oh yeah,
perceived as
feminized. Yeah, that's what it is. Thank
feminizing
you.
men?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Beckett. Thank you. I mean, if you want to talk more about the other thing too, that's fine.
Well, I mean, the women overrepresented in education, I feel like we tackled in the last question, but why do people think that it's feminizing men? I think that goes back to the kind of reactionary politics that particularly the West has. That there are, again, norms and expectations along gender lines, and one of them is education, and that if they are men, young boys, are constantly surrounded by women, and their primary role models are going to be women, then those kinds of norms are going to bleed into them. Those behaviors are going to bleed into them. It also goes back to like the early '90s of like, they're taking away dodgeball, they're trying to turn our boys into little sissies, like this. Again, stoicism and lack of emotional clarity that young boys are expected to have as they're growing up. That if things that are supposed to instill the ideal masculine characteristics are removed from their spaces, and things that are giving them more emotional intelligence, more awareness of how they're feeling, and an ability to contextualize it, then that is going to rob them of masculinity, morph them into some kind of amorphous, pseudo feminine or outright feminine person. But yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. I think there's some like Red Scare propaganda that goes into it as well. you often hear like anti-communist, anti-socialist reactionaries say that like communism is about like when men and women have no distinction between them, and there's no religion. Everything's secularist and atheistic, like the very weird kind of values that we have ascribed to different modes of social organization.
I low key want to see that. Not gonna lie, I want to see what that looks like. Honestly, like
Yeah, say
they,
less.
they right like the picture, the meme, or the little picture of the women, and they're like whipping the men or what have you, and they're all like doing like work like, and the women
Yeah,
are all
this
in
is
like
what the
BDSM.
liberals want.
It is what liberals want. I mean, where's the dotted line? Give me a
Yeah.
pen. Like, don't threaten me with a good time. I will take the good time every time.
Yeah.
Anyways, someone else about the to refresh before I threw my grenades of tangents. Why do we feel that women are being overrepresented, or there's dominating in education or graduating? How dare these females become smart? And why? In what ways? Why do we feel like, or where does it come from? The idea of education feminizing men. I really want to know that. So go ahead. I think I saw Sarah first. I'm going to Dr. K, then we'll go to Corey.
Well, we're seeing women who are teachers telling kids, "Hey, it's okay if you don't feel like a boy. It's okay if you don't feel like a girl." And you see Republicans freaking the hell out with these bills that they're coming up with everywhere because they feel like, "Oh my gosh, everyone's being feminized," and that's why you see, like I said, the world is basically on fire. There's a war against teachers right now because they think they're being feminized and they're being told, they think they're being groomed. And that really triggers me right there. And uh, that's why I think they think they're being feminized when they're being told, hey, it's not wrong to feel how you feel.
I mean, wasn't it North Carolina that just outlawed pronouns in a school district? It's like,
I didn't know that.
I want to know how that's gonna. I mean, I honestly laugh at it because I'm like, I wonder how that's gonna play out. But we know how it's gonna play out. Like, it's just gonna be implemented against trans kids.
So,
I
I
don't
had a
understand how
discussion.
these people call us the snowflakes,
Oh, it's
and
projection.
yet they freak out about pronouns.
It's projection.
Hold on there. Oh, hold on for a second, Gremlo. Let's go to Dr. K, and then if
Oh,
you
sure.
wanted to piggyback again, and then we'll go to Corey. We'll go
Oh,
ping
yeah,
pong
sure.
boom. Like, yeah. All right,
I
go
mean,
ahead.
It's pretty normative that any field or line of work or whatever, that develops a sufficiently strong stigma one way or the other, is going to repulse the opposite gender oftentimes while we're operating under patriarchy, right? A good instance of this, right, is early on the field of computing was by and large, women. Um, and once the field got that stigma of like their support for real mathematicians, and so computing is woman's work, right? Men don't want to touch the field, and it can very much happen in reverse, right? Where as a field begins to develop a reputation for being vitriolly misogynistic in its behavior, women are going to avoid that field, and over time you get sort of a self-selection. um, Ironically, computing and tech is a good example of the inverse as well, because Silicon Valley has a bad reputation of being very misogynistic, and so you get less women applying into fields like computer science, except for trans women, but that's a weird pride thing.
Oh, sorry.
It's because there's like a cultural history there, and just like it's where the good money is, and a lot of like trans women who are already going to college tend to come from families that are open to that kind of. It's a long thing, but it's a one group that is maybe a little insulated from that.
Give me 1 second. We're gonna have another panelist come on in a second. Smite Night just arrived, so
Lovely.
we're gonna go ahead and throw Smite Night in this little shindig here in a second. Smite Night, if you want to come into the Discord, Antarctic, drop the Discord server, make yourself useful, and Smite Night, if you want to come in to Glasspool, and then I'll move you on over to Thunderdome once you hop on in here. Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Antarctic. You're a doll. You're a dear. Love you.
Someone a
Go
moment
ahead,
ago
Grandpa.
said, "How are these teachers? Like, how's that going to work out? Removing pronouns." I spoke with Chris Deere, awarded National Teacher of the Year. You know, talked to Dark Brandon about it and everything. And one of the modes of resistance against this that teachers are utilizing is radical compliance, where if pronouns are not allowed, then okay, we'll see how that works out whenever we're making tests. We can't have any pronouns. All right, well, it's gonna be real hard to do the, this person gave this person this many apples. How many apples do they have left? It's gonna be real hard to do that without pronouns. So,
Mhm.
They is a pronoun.
Right. It's just,
yeah,
well, we know what's gonna
but
happen, right? They're just gonna
yeah,
use it
Yeah,
against trans kids. Is what it is. That's what it's gonna
it's
do.
ruled it's ruled by arbitratum, right?
yeah.
Right. Yeah.
We already saw a proto version of this with how the Florida bill with the don't say gay stuff. It's a little more complicated than that, but essentially the bill, sort of leaves open where any inappropriate teaching of gender allows a Florida parent to sue the school district, right? And this means
Yeah.
this creates the widest interpretation possible because the interpretation that gets you sued is whatever a Florida parent can construe as inappropriate teaching, which can be fucking anything if you're a random Florida parent, right? And so it's going to be probably similar to that, where no pronouns, meaning like it can essentially be interpreted however the group that wants to silence its opposition wants to utilize it as. And I really like the Florida bill too for that stipulation because it's fascinating. It's a decentralization of oppression of an outgroup, right? And that's sort of the new big thing, right? That's
Yeah.
that's the new innovation in reactionary politics is decentralized silencing of your opposition. The Texas trans bill is another great example of that, right? Where it's like you can now have vigilantes report on like who's transing their kids or who's getting an abortion. So the state doesn't have to get its hands dirty at all. It's all kept in private hands, meaning you have decentralized it's fucking brilliant, and I fucking hate it.
Yes.
Until they take over like every federal position, and then it's top-down oppression.
Oh,
Right.
of course.
Sigh.
Also,
If
But
only.
Smite Knight,
that's the
how
thing.
dare
That's the
you?
thing, though, right?
If
That's the
only
thing.
we didn't just.
It's
If only we never
it's
stopped teaching kids
pragmatism.
about God.
It's pragmatism. If it gets the job done, they're gonna be okay because this is reactionary. This
Yep.
is a group that is desperately clinging to power, right?
Yep.
Because it is reacting to a new proposed status quo. And so, if it gets the job done, they don't fucking care. So if it's decentralized, repression of voice or overt repression of oppositional voices, as long as it fucking works, they'll back it.
Right, exactly. And I hate to interject, but how dare you, Smite Knight, just come in here off of work, hella late, and looking that good, okay?
Showing off those
welcome.
muscly shoulders. Put them away,
Right.
you
Yeah.
slut.
Right, this
I'm
is
so
shit.
sorry.
This is what we're talking about. The feminization of men. How dare you
That's
show
right.
your shoulders? How dare you?
I know.
How
I know.
dare
I'm
you show your
distracting.
shoulders?
I'm distracting everyone in class right now with my collarbones.
And
I
now
was
with
told
a
about the
pet
dress
in the
code.
background too.
Those really like feminine, like bare like collarbones,
Yeah.
being feminized from
Yeah.
education. But speaking
That's
of
what I keep hearing.
speaking of feminization and shoulder showing, Smite Knight, I'm gonna go ahead and throw the prompt at you that we're talking about right now. So, where do you think? First off, let me do one thing at a time. First off, why do you think, or do you think, if you disagree with it, and that's fine, women are overrepresented in education, both in teaching education and also, graduating with degrees and what have you. Why do you think that is the case? And if you do, why do you think that is? And then not only that, but where is this dreaded, this disgusting, this degenerate feminization of men in education? Where does it come from? Why are they massacring and feminizing my boys? Why? Where do you think that comes from? Stop laughing at me.
That's a lot. That's a lot to unpack there. You
One at
know,
a time.
10
first
words or
off,
less.
One at a time.
yeah,
It's
first off, I mean, I have one answer to all of this, okay? It's Marxism, okay? That's what's going on in our schools, all right? They're
you mean to tell
teaching.
me it's that communist jargon?
Yes,
I fucking knew
absolutely.
it.
It's all these professors telling everybody that, like, you know, capitalism bad, ooh woo, and then, you know, the men get woke, and that's how like feminization starts. Um now I mean, to seriously think about it, I guess I don't know the current statistics. I know that generally speaking, I believe that is it more women now get degrees like undergrad and PhD and graduate level
Pretty
degrees
much
than
all level.
Yeah, we kind
yeah.
of already talked about that. Like the degree hanging on the wall in the hallway, that's not mine. That's my partner's. I don't
There you
have
go.
one.
Um so I mean, as far as like over I mean, I don't think it's a problem, first off, I guess. I think it's more like representative of maybe well, it's probably representative of a lot of different factors. Patriarchy, like instilling what men should do and shouldn't do, you know, probably plays some kind of role in there. Although I tend to lean back on financial situations more so than anything as a divider. But as far as like, I guess it's always funny to me when I hear people complain about like, oh, you know, higher education is turning everybody into leftist radicals or something like that. And it's like, I don't know, maybe just like learning something about like how the our current like system works makes you think that it's broken and dog shit and maybe we should like, I don't know, do something about it. Um I guess it depends on who I'm talking to, how seriously I'm going to take that accusation about like feminized men or something like that. I don't know. I don't know really where to go from there.
It's this like weird concession. Like, oh my god, my kid. You hear it all the time, right, from conservative parents. My kid went out to school and then they came back and now all of a sudden they don't believe in Jesus. And not only do they not believe in Jesus, but they came back home with a black guy. Why? Why she come? We did not
Kid
raise you
sounds
like
cool. Kid sounds real cool.
that.
I think well there's like the constant like, you know, progress of time where, you know, every generation seems to be more and more progressive than the previous generations. And the same kind of like delusions of you know, an outside or inside force that's corrupting people, you know, modernity is making people into degenerates. That's always going to happen. It was Harry Potter is turning our kids into witches and sorcerers in the early 90s or early aughts. It was Satanic Panic back in the day. It was Reefer Madness, miscegenation,
Dungeons
race
and
fixing.
Dragons.
Yeah, Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah,
I did
I
not
love
use
Stranger
that.
Things. So yeah, it's the same exact thing. Christopher Rufo, the kind of progenitor of the CRT madness, said exactly that. Like, we've been able to encapsulate all things that conservative people don't like into one banner, CRT. So when you see something you don't like, that's CRT. That's cultural Marxism. So yeah, it's the same thing.
I gotta interject here real quick. Thank you so much to Lexibat with the raid of 24. Holy shit! I apologize to everyone that the Voltron Force theme went that long. I did not expect it to. Anyways, continue. Yes, we are talking.
Oh, that was
We are talking about. I'm sorry. I'm ADHD as fuck. I am so sorry. We are talking about how school apparently is feminizing these boys. They're putting things in the curriculum that's turning the boys femme. You know, we're talking about that right now. This is the Feminist Intersection. Welcome. Obviously, what I'm talking about is sarcastic more than anything, but it apparently is a problem that we need to face head on. You know, these boys becoming feminized in school. You know, like Alex Jones turning the frogs gay. Yeah, that's exactly it. Anyways, where did Gremlo go? Oh, I hurt his feelings. I'm so sorry. I did not mean to do that. Like, because he was about to chime in with something else, and I was like, I gotta shout out the raid. Anybody else want to chime in? Smite Knight, you can go ahead and go again because you did not or anybody, literally anybody, save me, please. Yeah. Oh, there you are. Graham, you were gonna say something before you left.
Oh, I think I had just finished up what I was saying. Sorry, I
Okay.
just had to check on my wife. She's got a cold.
Okay. No, I feel.
Oh no.
Is yours also a sickly woman who like is a bookworm that also like teaches?
Damn, that's like right on the nose.
Damn! Twinsies!
Yeah, for
Damn!
real.
Anyways, anybody else want to chime in, or are we gonna move on to like another topic? Feel free, like, or if you have anything that you would like to ask or like you would like to bring up. Also, people in chat as well. You can also bring things up. Beckett, you know that we don't just do hand raising here. We also do inserting ourselves Godzilla style. Go ahead.
I know, and I'm sorry. I
Godzilla
definitely
don't raise
didn't
no hand.
follow the joining procedure. I just inserted myself. So
Exactly.
I saw you guys were all on this channel, and I was like,
Go
It's a
ahead.
Twitch panel. You just
Um,
gotta scream.
but
Yeah.
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 I
And he's got a
I wanted
dog.
to touch on the I have a cat. She's right here. She's being very whiny. I don't know if you guys can hear her or not.
I can't.
No.
And my people are in the other room.
Okay,
My cats and
good.
lady are in the other room. All right, continue with what you were
Yeah,
saying.
she's hungry. So anyway, yeah, I wanted to briefly on. You had mentioned like the trans kids and how and the pronouns and the things like that. And I think that the root of transphobia again is misogyny. Everything goes back to misogyny.
It does. It does.
Because yeah, it does, because the root of transphobia is, you know, they want men to stay men and manly men, and we can't feminize the men because then they'll want to become women, and then the girls, you know, the TERFs freak out about all the lesbians turning into trans men, because if a man were to reduce himself to the level of a woman by becoming one, and he's not worthy, like why would he choose that, is their kind of thought process. And then if a girl wants to become a man, then she just wants the power that comes with being perceived as a man, that we don't, you know, we don't get as assigned feminine at birth in this society. So it's all just, you know, if a trans guy exists, it's because he wanted like access to the power of being a guy. And then if a trans woman exists, it's because she, I don't know, was self-hating enough to want to give up her male power. It's really weird.
I mean, usually it's portrayed as being like a weird sex thing, and it's like not the case. But you know.
Well,
Yeah.
that's like, you know, conservative 101 with anything. They blame any like thing outside of like heteronormativity as like this hypersexual kind of descriptions, right? They did the same thing, you know, with gay people throughout the 20th century. And hey, guess what's making a comeback right now?
Gay shit.
Yeah. So and can we just address really quickly that the people always touting that men are becoming feminized or looking towards I guess the growing like trans community as some kind of sign of the end of like I guess manly men or something, are they themselves not great examples of the ideals they spout? Like Jordan Peterson and Ben Shapiro are not exactly like what they describe like as ideal peak masculinity, which hey, guess what, that's totally fine,
Right.
because in our like
Yeah.
in like lefties you know worldview, you can, you know, look, sound, behave however you want, that does not change your identity, but to them, by their own rules, they don't fit into those roles very well, which is of course
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
projection.
Well,
Right.
and then you
No, go ahead.
exactly, and then you get these TERFs on the Women's March changing their logo and like, you know, trying to prove that the new profile is,
Is what?
and then you have these
You cut
TERFs
out
who
for a
look
second.
exactly like, oh did I, sorry,
Yeah.
the TERFs you know, criticizing the new Women's March logo and trying to prove that the nose shape makes the profile like a man or whatever.
They
because they don't
crossed
see
They
trans women as women.
They cropped her
But then
Adam's
you have,
apple out.
but then you have these, right, and then you have these TERFs who have that exact same nose shape and profile, and they're cis women, and they don't even they've become such parodies of themselves they can't even see it.
I mean,
And
I just want to
it's
go.
gotten bad too, like with like the trans clocking, like notice the bow shape in the legs. That's how you can tell that that's a man. And they start like trying to clock trans people, and they're clocking cis women
Right, and it's like
instead. It's
it's
so
like
fucking
Mhm.
stupid.
it's
Yeah.
like dog. Can I just call you
Yeah.
ugly because the inside seems to match the outside? Like
Yeah.
it starts internally and then it like turns inside out with turfs, like with that kind of like thought process. They start ugly. Like listen, you see some before and after photos, like that one lady from Michigan, right? She's most likely the person who wants to like ban contraceptives and shit and is like all anti-abortion. The young girl who's like barely even 30, but she looks like she's 40. Telling you, if you were to show me a before and after picture, like once the evil is set in, it's like they Palpatine. All of them. They all just Palpatine. And it's just like, oh my god, you're 30? That's 30 now? Holy shit.
Can I point something else out?
On the inside
And I
really
feel like
does kind of bleed out to the outside.
also want to point out, and like I feel like that has to be said every time we're talking about like trans panic, gay panic, groomer madness, whatever it is, that it is impossible for these reactionaries to talk about kids and not bring up sex. It is impossible difficulty,
Sus.
ultimate challenge, every hit run. Every time they talk about kids, they're gonna bring up like fucking them. It's so weird.
It's
It is,
really
but
gross.
it's true.
Yeah,
You're
it's more
really
than weird.
telling on yourselves.
Well, it goes back to that like
Yeah.
Puritan, like Protestant, like ethics of like women need to be pure, and like you said earlier, Brigitte, demure. I like that word, and like we have to keep them chaste until their marriage age of 13. Like very fucking weird.
I don't get it either. Like I'm sitting here, I'm thinking like,
I get it. It's because they're pedophiles, but I mean, you know.
right. But I don't get that either. I'm like, where's the fascination? Like, I don't
Honestly,
understand.
why are you even putting children and sex in the same sentence?
Right?
Why are
Like,
you even thinking about
why are
that?
you even thinking about that? Right? Like,
Because there's
See,
only
I-
one
I
thing that
push-
your genitals are for, apparently.
I
right.
push back on the idea that it's because they're pedophiles, and it's not because I want to defend them or anything, but I think it's far more insidious than that, right? In that it is ultimately about control, right?
Yeah.
And because if you have control, right, we're talking about an ideology, right, that is repugnant to most people, and ultimately is constantly getting smaller due to the fact that like the ruling class essentially has to constantly reinforce and redouble the strength of this ideology in order to keep it flowing in. And you have to constantly add new people to the in group of like who's American and we like. And so you're always getting a smaller reactionary base. And so if you can control the education and the upbringing of children, right, you can perfectly propagandize to a new generation and essentially reproduce the reactionary thinking that you have in a new generation.
Exactly.
Yep.
I've
And
said that exact
Mhm.
same thing before too when I've talked to like my community about like how do we move culture back on the path, because we're in the backslide of reactionary politics right now. But it's you can't fix adults, right? You can give them like material restitution, but the only way that you get culture back on track is through education and making sure that their children are able to,
I
properly contextualize.
I would push back on that, but that's for another time, right?
Sure.
I would also add an additional asterisk to it, right? In that when you're talking about reactionary ideology, right, it is ultimately about the hierarchical structure, right? The boss at the top, the worker at the bottom, and when you're talking about the reactionary family structure, ultimately the child is at the bottom, right? And so, sort of the idea of a child exercising autonomy in almost any way is at its very core repugnant to the reactionary ideology.
Yeah. That's why you see a
Well,
lot of like conservative parent books, like how to train your child to behave.
well, I
It's
was
it's
gonna
treated nearly like property.
Yeah.
I was gonna say,
Children are like
it's
Mhm.
also like
dogs.
it's completely in line with you know, Republican political goals as well, right? This idea of controlling education. They're constant like school boards, right, have been the target for like right wing outrage for like the past like what 5 6 years, more than that obviously, but
Mhm.
recently you have a lot of like big public figures talking about it, and then like not to mention the fact that school boards themselves, their makeup is incredibly right wing in a lot of the country, especially in small town schools
Yeah.
throughout the majority of like red districts. Additionally, I mean, the Republican Party has done everything they can to push public education toward complete bankruptcy for the past like I don't know 20 years. They're trying to privatize education. They already got through the Supreme Court prayer back in schools, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they also got the flag above the Christian flag above the Capitol, the state capitol. These are all steps to you know, be able to control people's, you know, perception on what is acceptable, what isn't acceptable, and they definitely do realize that the best place to start with that is with like early childhood and early youth. I mean, hell, can we
PragerU.
can we can we well forget PragerU for a second? Can we talk about how effective the Daughters of the Confederacy were
Oh my
in
god.
their
Spike,
goals?
Oh
Spike,
my
can
fucking god.
can I
But
interject
one
real
more
quick?
one more thing.
Sure.
One more
This
thing.
is
We
real
gotta.
important.
Yeah, I just got an announcement to make. Thank you so much, Freya Yamato. For subbing. I need a new car, and I also need Planned Parenthood. So
No,
thank you so
like,
much. Anyways, go ahead.
no, like Eli, my kitty is puking. I need to go take care of it now, so
Oh.
I'm gonna leave the stream now, everyone.
Oh.
Goodbye.
Oh,
Sorry for
take
the
care.
quick
You
leave.
well?
No,
Oh,
you're
you're
fine.
good.
Goodbye.
Yeah.
Sorry
Have a
about
good
that.
one.
Everyone follow Dr. K. Yes. But like I was saying, thank you so much, Freya Yamato, for the sub. Your boy needs a new car soon. So, you know, the Ratmobile right now is chugging. It's chugging. It's still going on. It's still taking me to see all my clients and stuff on a daily basis. But I do need another one, and I also would like to keep Planned Parenthood in business. So, thank you so much for helping me for those two things that I'm aiming for. Anyways, where were we? I think Smite Knight was hitting on a really good point there about
The Daughters of the
the Daughters of the
Confederacy?
yeah, the Daughters of the Confederacy. Yeah, that shit right there. Oh my god. You even see that shit right in the you see the same sort of like rhetoric, I feel like, being used in anti or
Oh, yeah.
forced birth movements in a way, in the way in which they talk about abortion. If you look at it, look at the way in which they talk about abortion. It's all about framing a narrative and getting people to think, you know, okay, we got them to think that it's about states' rights. We got them to
The
think,
Democratic Party wants to kill black babies.
yeah,
That kind of shit.
yeah. We got
Yeah,
them to think that it's states' rights again. Like this would be a states' rights issue. It's crazy about with bringing up the Daughters of the Confederacy. I'm sorry, but we'll go to Sarah and then Gremlo. You two had something you wanted to say, and I talk enough.
Well, he mentioned they want you to think Democrats want to kill black babies. I remember briefly knowing this evangelical man, I'm forgetting his name, but I remember the final straw with this guy was he was trying to get me on the forced birth movement. This was back in 2020, and he said to me that um the babies who are most aborted are black babies, and if I'm not pro-life, then I'm not pro-Black Lives Matter, and that was it for me. I told him I will not tolerate this, and I was done with him. So I feel like you hit that on the head right there.
Right. So here is another thing, right? Um. So. You know what? I lost my train of thought. Somebody
You
else
want me to?
save it. Yeah, go ahead. I lose my
Okay.
ADHD, man.
I was gonna kind of springboard off of what Smite was saying
Go ahead.
about education being like the one of the key modes of control, and Dr. K was talking about that as well. If I'm gonna put on my like conspiracy hat, my like dialectical materialism crystal ball, I'm gonna gaze into it for a moment. It seems to me that the idea behind a lot of what we're seeing in Florida, particularly like the recent legislation they passed to allow veterans and their spouses with very minimal qualifications and not focus in actual like education or anything like that to teach in schools, and how they're making it incredibly uncomfortable for teachers who are not pieces of shit to teach in Florida. It seems to me that the end game of that is to make it so uncomfortable for teachers to teach in Florida that essentially all positions are taken over by non qualified people, and all public schools are completely defunded. They want to
Yeah.
do patriotic education, essentially. They want to do, like, George Orlando's 1975 Animal Crossing on education.
Well, so just jumping onto that real quick, I don't know how many of you got to see the Vosh v. Charlie Kirk debate on Tim Pool a while back.
I
The reason I
enjoyed
bring
that.
that up,
I
so
enjoyed that conversation.
the reason I bring it up is because Charlie Kirk talked about, the problems that he has with education, right? And I thought it was really enlightening for like what the Republican goals are. He talked a lot about how they don't teach like quote unquote gratefulness to like kids, right?
Yeah.
And he essentially meant that kids aren't taught that America is the best or inherently good because it is America, right? And well, that's like a silly notion. And like, how do you even teach that as a concept, let alone how brain broken it is? But regardless, that idea of teaching like you should be inherently grateful for just being here,
Yep.
you know, don't pay attention to the fact that other comparable nations, right, have universal healthcare, better infrastructure, a larger social safety net, standard publicized healthcare. Don't think about that kind of stuff. Just be grateful that you're here in a country where you could be one paycheck away from starvation,
Right.
homelessness. There's a lot of things going on there, but this idea of gratefulness, I think, is something to keep in mind. Go
Well,
ahead.
yeah, and I think that sort of speaks to, at least in my mind, a little bit of the hypocrisy on the other side of like, you know, when it's the left advocating for teaching certain things, the pushback is of, well, no, education just be about the facts, just teach arithmetic, don't instill any values or anything like that. But then, like, sort of to your points, Might Night, but when it's a value that they espouse about gratefulness, about like no matter what, more or less, from what I can understand of how you described it, of like instilling nationalism, well, then they're okay for that type of value. But if it's like things like, empathy or compassion, or other, typical good left things, then it's like, no, just stick to the facts, facts only. Just, arithmetic, reading, science,
Just STEM.
and yeah, just this valueless education,
I
unless
wouldn't
it's their
say.
values.
I would. Yeah, I was gonna say. I wouldn't even say it's like
The math books are
valueless.
too CRT woke.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say it's like necessarily valueless, but it's more along the lines of it's only the values that we want. And then it is also, in a way, I feel like ties back to, um, dare I even say, implementing, toxic masculinity of like boys will just be boys, of like, we got to teach again, we got on this huge topic from talking about just the way in which school is feminizing men or young boys. They're putting stuff in the breakfast cereal in the morning at the cafeteria, their daily dose of like CRT that somehow turns them gay and also feminizes them. Like, oh my god. All that
Don't
shit,
forget the
right?
sword, brother.
Yeah, exactly. So
If
I
that's the
guess,
worst thing in the world, that their sons would turn out gay or trans.
like, oh my god, like, so one of the things, if I could share like my own like personal thing, we didn't get to something else. We're about to end here in a bit, and I think I'm gonna go ahead and raid into Beckett because they need viewers. And anyways, because you're new, not because you suck or anything. It's because you're new, you're brand new. Anyways, but like one of the things I am a piece of garbage. Okay, one
No,
of the
don't-
things that really sucked for me growing up was, I guess we're gonna go back. I think I want to get some more opinions or thoughts upon like on like competition. So for like the young boys out there, right? Because like speaking from my personal experience growing up, competition is what really sort of turned me off from like hanging around with other other boys when I was growing up, because I didn't like that toxic competition. I didn't like a lot of the rough housing. I didn't like a lot of that. So I guess um, we'll end on this, right? What is, I guess, a healthy way of competition, I guess, among men, to like kind of, I know that's like a bit of a sharp like turn to a different direction, but go
Could
ahead,
I
Corey.
take this because I have to go in a sec?
Oh, then
Go for
yeah.
it.
I think
And then
competition is fine.
give your outro after that and tell people where they
Oh,
can find
sure. Yeah, competition is fine. It's how you approach that competition, right? Like flag football or whatever sport ball you're playing, and you like, tackle somebody to the ground and you, oh, get fucked, yeah, dude, and slur, you're a pussy, whatever. That shit's not fun, right? Competition that's like meant to like develop or grow through it. Like that's the kind of competition I like. That's the kind of competition I want to see more people being a part of. It's the attitude in which you approach it with that I think you can get the most value out of. And also, yeah, since I'm heading out, everybody, thank you again, Monty, for having me on. Smite, good to see you, buddy. We need to do more content together. I'm Grimlow, everybody. I'm live on twitch.tv/Grimlow, GREMLOE, every day at 7 a.m. Central Standard Time, covering news, politics, and current affairs. Tomorrow we'll be covering Trump getting raided by the FBI. Oh my God, there's so much content. All right, I know. He got Mar-a-Lago raided by the FBI, and yeah, it's great stuff.
Oh my
So,
God.
yeah. I'll thank you everybody.
gonna leave.
Talk to
Pleasure.
area list. Yeah. Sarah, Corey, good seeing you. Smite, good seeing you again, buddy. So yeah,
And
I'm out
please,
everybody. Thank you
please
so
come
much for
back
inviting me
again.
on.
We would love to have
Yeah.
you again.
Yeah,
Thank you so
absolutely.
much.
Just
Go check him
let
out,
me know.
everybody.
All right.
Um,
Peace, everyone.
Take care.
I talk way too fucking much. Anyways, more than,
It's your show.
but I talk way too much. I should give you guys more airtime. Whoever else wants
Yeah.
to go next, and then I guess after that, everybody can give, after we do this little shindig, everybody can give their outros, and then we're gonna raid into Beckett, and then I'm going to go do things.
Yeah. To sort of touch on what you brought up, Eli, about competition, of like it's somewhat maybe similar to you in terms of like, growing up, at least elementary, high school, there's the typical whatever gym class, and like, maybe I'm just not man enough, but I just never understood this obsession with competition. Like I don't really watch any sports. I like playing sports. And like I'm a very physically active person, and if there's I'm highly physically active in just about any sport or activity that's physical activity. Like I'll engage with it. But like I'm never, at least me personally, like I like friendly competition in terms of like actual friends where we're competing each other, but like it's for fun. I'm not doing it to like beat my friend or like make them feel bad or like to gloat over them. Like most of the times when I'm playing any sort of like sports with a friend, like we're not like keeping score or anything. Like I used to be a pretty regular like squash player. I'm like we would never keep score. Because like what's the point?
You
Like
kind of just go until you're bored, right? Until
yeah.
you get bored of it.
Uh,
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think friendly competition is good. Where it's for the fun of it, as opposed to like the toxic competition of like usually like it's at the expense of someone else, or you're looking to one up another person, or to gloat, or to stroke your ego. I think that's a large motivation for it as well. I think there's a balance there, but like again, the obsession with competition is something that I never really resonated with me.
All right. Whoever else wants to go next.
I think that
I
my
think the
husband.
oh, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll
That's
go
okay.
quick.
Go ahead.
I'll be quick.
Fight. I'm kidding. Fight for
compete,
it.
compete, compete.
Compete.
he could not be friends with other boys because they were competitive, and that was never his nature. He always found it more fun to be friends with girls, and to this day, it's hard for him to be friends with other men because he wants to talk about how he's feeling, and it's better for his mental health to be friends with women or those who are femme presenting. But for him, and I agree with him, a healthy type of competition is video games, playing Dungeons and Dragons, something that's mentally uh, uh is mentally stimulating. We like that kind of competition.
Right,
So
yeah.
that's the type of competition that we like.
All of the nerdy competition is all of a sudden the good competition. Like I like playing Magic with my bros and going, you know what? I just did 55 damage to each of your faces. Get good. It's great. It's a great time.
Yes.
I think Beckett
Yeah.
was next, and then
Oh
we'll go
my
to
god!
Smite.
And X tried to train. He tried to teach me how to play Magic, and he just murdered me the entire game. He didn't teach me anything, and it was not fun. And I never played Magic again after that.
You gotta
But
get
anyway,
a good teacher that's like
think
willing to.
that yeah, he was not that. But I think that the key to healthy competition is to realize that not everything needs to be a competition, first off, and there's enough to go around. Like, women are more than 50% of the population. If that girl rejects you and goes for some other guy, there's gonna be another girl. Like, you don't have to make this huge thing of it. And yeah, I think there's more than enough pie for everybody. So just learn to deal with your emotions and, realize that your day will come.
All right, and then after that, we're gonna go to the man, the myth himself, Smite Knight.
Yeah. I guess like healthy competition, unhealthy competition. I think I'm gonna take this from a different angle than what I've heard so far. I like all your points for the record. But I think that what I want to talk about is more like school stuff, especially when you get into like college. Um, Sports needs to be decoupled from the financial aspects of school. I think that the fact that education relies on, um, you know, this level of competition, which doesn't pay people one, and also is detrimental to their health in many cases. Um, is of course perpetuating our grand ideas about what competition is or what it should look like. You know, if even like family members and friends that I have that have done maybe not even maybe like even semi-professional sports. I had an uncle, right? He had been cycling all his life, right? And he had tried to get into the competitive aspect of it. He went crazy. He had like 5% body fat. Didn't like he would get sick constantly, trying to keep like that edge to make sure that he was in peak condition. Although I don't get how that is peak condition um, when a common cold can knock you on your ass. Uh, so I think we need to decouple this obsession with, I guess, like the financial aspect of sports and competition entirely, because I think that that infiltrates our general perceptions as well. Um, on like what the stakes are, what they shouldn't be. Um, yeah, what I got.
Yeah, I think that's a great point.
Yeah.
Of like, the glorification of competition, as a result of like all of the monetary and financial rewards that we tie to it.
Well, I doubt those were some great points. We had a lot of great points tonight. Not everybody who I wanted to show up tonight could show up, and some of us came fashionably late, but better late than never. Than never. I'm gonna go ahead and let all of these lovely people shout themselves out. Tell us who you are, where we can find you, and if you want to, your pronouns and shit, and like also, as for the question of the day, um, who is your favorite female superhero. Let's go with that. Who is your favorite female superhero? We'll go into that, and then we'll close out. We'll start, of course, with Corey. Please.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you again for the invitation on your first panel. Like, I really do feel honored to be part of it, and I don't take it for granted. But yeah, super enjoyed it. I'm Corey Campbell. You can find me on Twitch, Corey Campbell 84, and on Twitter and Instagram. Literally, it's Corey Campbell. I conveniently on Twitter, I announce my pronouns jokingly. He-Man and She-Ra are my pronouns.
I
but
saw
no,
that tweet.
He,
I thought that
him,
was
they,
funny.
them. Pretty much whatever you want, actually. And to answer your question, very easy for me. I don't know. Hopefully, it comes. Wonder Woman, 100%.
That's a good one. That's a real good one. All right, and then next we're gonna go ahead and move on to well, first off, we're gonna tell Corey. I'm gonna tell you guys to check Corey out. Y'all need to check my boy out. He's a great guy, especially his tweets. Next we're gonna go
Thank
ahead
you.
and go to Sarah. I hate ADHD. Go, Sarah.
Thank you again for having me on your panel. This was a lot of fun. I'm very glad that you had me on. And you can find me on TikTok and Instagram. It's Sarah Only. Sorry, I changed the name there. And my nonprofit is voicelessbehindbars.org. We help the wrongfully convicted up to raise money for them to pay for their legal fees, and we fight the stigma for those who are either in jail or been to jail. My pronouns are she, her, and also my favorite female superhero would have to be Miss Marvel.
That's a good one. That is a very good one. I'm not too into Marvel. I'm more into DC. But like binary though, that's my type right there. That's my type. Anyway, for some reason I like women that are on fire. Anyways, we're gonna go ahead and go to Beckett next. Whenever you're ready. Oh, there you go.
There we go. Hi. Yeah, so hi. Thanks, Eli, for hosting this and for having me. It's been a pleasure. It was a really great conversation. And yeah, I'm Beckett LA on most platforms. Not all, as you can see, but most of the ones that count. Mostly I am on TikTok, so you can catch me most frequently over there. And I'm trying to stream on Twitch now on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. LA. Oh, and my favorite female superhero is probably an out of the box choice, but it's Black Canary.
Ooh, I like Black Canary.
Yes.
I like Black Canary. Like her a lot. Yeah, please go check out another good friend of mine. Her and Sarah, two good friends of mine. Next, last but not least, and latest, Smite Knight. I'm just giving you shit, man.
Yeah, I am Smite Knight, he, him, historian. I do Twitch streams mostly. You can find me on Twitch or on Twitter at Smite, SMIGHT _ Knight, KNIGHT. Yeah, first off, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate the panel. I think I did a lot of prep to talk about intersectional feminism, and then I realized that I had to work. So I was like, well, great, so I'll be late. But anyway, so I guess favorite, did I miss anything? Favorite superhero? I'm gonna say actually Maeve from The Boys. I think a fantastic representation of like a realistic like person under you know the pressures of a capitalist system.
Under extreme duress.
Yes, under extreme duress, and still doing what she can and just being a badass. I don't know.
You know, that's interesting because
Good choice.
I've been meaning to actually make a TikTok about like how each one of the members of like the 7 represents a very distinct problem, very distinct social aspect or problem within our society. And I think you really hit the nail on the head there with Maeve and how she really represents sort of like how women in many typically male dominated fields are kind of like suppressed and pushed down, or in some cases pushed out, or expected to perform a certain way, and then when they don't, they get ridiculed for it and everything like that. And that's a very good I think she does that's a very good interpretation, a very good symbol of that, I guess, would be Queen Maeve. As for me, my favorite female superhero, I have a lot actually, but I guess I'm gonna have to go with if I have to go with superhero specifically, my own question. I would say it's really hard for me between Wonder Woman and Supergirl. It's really hard for those two. Those two
I
right there,
understand
dear to my heart.
the conflict.
Yeah, those two, dear to my heart. Anyways, I thank you all so much for joining me. Please feel free to check out all of these wonderful individuals: Smite Knight, Beckett, Beckett LA, or Otaku Aerialist, It's Sarah, or It's Only Sarah, and Corey Campbell, as well as Dr. K and Gremlo as well. I cannot thank these guys enough for coming onto this panel. I'm sorry if it was all over the place, and if I'm all over the place, this is just I am what you see is what you get. I'm sorry, I can't help myself, and I love these discussions on these topics, and what have you. And I hope to have you guys on in future episodes. Now get out of here. Thanks a bunch. Y'all have a good night.
Take care.
Take
Be well.
All right, now we're gonna go ahead and we're